Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today? So when I spoke to the IoT Summit people and we discussed what Globecomm can talk about, I said, you know what, in the transportation area, definitely. They wanted me to discuss things about smart city, and I noticed that when they were talking about vehicles, when they were talking about transportation, one thing they didn't touch on was the maritime industry. Globecomm's pretty big in the maritime industry. Our legacy is satellite communications, so how else are you going to reach a ship? Maritime industry is the way it is. As was introduced, thank you for the introduction, I've been in the telecommunications industry since 1988. I've been with Globecomm since 1997, and a lot of people are starting to call me the old timer there, unfortunately, but that's okay. Globecomm is a systems integrator as well as a managed service provider. And when we're talking about the maritime industry, I'm going to go into a case study where we helped one of the largest shipping companies in the world, in conjunction with Ericsson, create a communications network that this company allowed their customers to be able to track their refrigerated sea containers and control them through the Internet of Things. Now, it's interesting when people ask me, how does satellite fit into the Internet of Things? And I remind people, and many of you have probably heard of the term SCADA. So really, the satellite industry worked in SCADA, since the 1970s. And that was really one way most of the time, but it was sensors in a long-distance remote management capability. And therefore, the Internet of Things kind of plays itself very well. I almost call it the evolution of SCADA technology. So what I'm going to touch on today is what it says right here in the right-hand side of the screen. We worked with the leading cellular equipment manufacturer, that being Ericsson, using IoT technology to help the world's largest shipping companies substantially reduce their insurance premiums. So that was that was the ROI that they were trying to achieve. It was reduction of their insurance premiums. And what we did, and I tried to throw some photos in there to give you an idea of what we were dealing with. So you see on this right-hand picture all of those sea containers. Ericsson provided a cellular base station that we installed on all of the ships. We had a satellite communications network that was connected to it, a higher frequency, a Ku-band frequency, as well as an L-band frequency network that could be used as a backup or backdoor. And what it did was all of those sea containers have machine-to-machine GSM modules on them. And those modules control not only the temperature of the sea containers, and keep in mind it's refrigerated sea containers. So you had air conditioners, heaters, and sensors and compressors that you can control in those sea containers. So those sea containers communicated with the cellular base station that was installed on the ship, which in turn communicated with the satellite system, thereby allowing connectivity anywhere in the world. You've heard of ubiquitous connectivity. Certainly we were able to achieve it between us and AT&T, who provided the cellular communications network for this network. So that's a little bit of background, but let me go in a little deeper to try to bring it to everyday terms that people know of. Think of the smart fridge. With the smart fridge, exactly what you see here, it's telling you the condition of what's inside and how you can change and modify it. Therefore, you make sure all of your refrigerated products are in optimum condition to what your desire is. Well, it's much the same as the smart fridge technology, but beyond that, it's also the condition of the fridge itself, and using IoT to be able to provide preventative maintenance. So with our network, we could actually contact the people, or the people themselves that are on the ship could go through our portal and determine where there were sea containers that have issues. Now, these ships have cranes on them and whatnot, and they could access the sea containers if the refrigeration was a problem and take corrective measures as needed. Because of this, because of the requirement of the network, you need continuously connected technology. And I'm going to give myself a little plug here. I released a white paper, The Pursuit of Continuous Connectivity. And if you look on the Globecomm website, you could access that white paper. But what it's doing is really generalizing communications and connectivity in general. And it would fit right in with what the panel prior to me was talking about, connected vehicles and autonomous vehicles, connected ships. And the maritime industry is looking at autonomous ships. I mean, you've certainly heard of all the pirating in the maritime industry. Think of an autonomous ship and how someone will be able to pirate that and take it over. It's next to impossible. Anyway, the connectivity, as I said before, you've got a cellular base station on the ship, you've got machine-to-machine GSM devices, KU-band satellite network, and an L-band network for backup services. The KU-band network allows a higher throughput, whereas the L-band network is lower throughput, but it ensures that connectivity. And ultimately, the initial objectives were met. The customer is able to, through our portal, they're able to monitor their refrigerated containers globally. So a ship anywhere in the world would have those sea containers communicating with the base station that's on the ship, which would in turn go over the satellite to all of our points of presence that are throughout the world. And we have a tier 1 cellular switch at our facility that takes the signal from the M2M device and aggregates it and provides it to the customers so they can get information from that each and every sea container that they own. It allowed for crew notification, and it reduced their insurance premium substantially, so much so that that the network has paid them off tenfold already, and it's only been in operation for 4 years. So I'll give you a good example. I always use bananas as an example. So imagine bananas being shipped from South America to Europe or something like that. And no, produce does not get shipped ripe already. Obviously, everyone knows that. It's not ripe. It's getting ripened as it's traversing the oceans. And perhaps the ship is going to Europe, and across the Atlantic Ocean, there are severe storms. It reroutes its course. The customer recognizes this. They access our network through our portal. They access their network, and they're able to increase the refrigeration. So perhaps the ship would get there 5 days later. They'll make sure those bananas don't get ripe before it gets there. Previous to this, the network operators, the shipping container owners, Maersk, previous to this, they had no way of proving to their customers that they were capable of keeping that refrigerated sea container completely refrigerated during the whole trip. So again, reduced their insurance premiums extensively. But we also provided additional capabilities. Besides the M2M communications, we provided communications for the crew, cellular communications for the crew. The KU-band network provided high-speed connectivity. Thereby, they could surf the web as they needed. They could have crew calling over GSM networks. And this third bullet down, this speed variance. So Globecomm created this software platform that monitored the tides of the oceans, and actually, through an IoT platform, it controlled the ship's engine so that it recognized the schedule that ship was on, and it recognized when it needed to get to port. If the tides were pushing it quicker, it would slow down the speed of the engine, thereby allowing Maersk to save immense quantities of fuel as well. We had to employ a geofencing system. The geofencing system forced us, we have a global roaming GSM license. However, when you're in 12 nautical miles of land, you have to turn off that GSM network and go on the network that the various countries are providing. So we had to employ that geofencing system. And lastly, it's providing media services. Again, people are out at sea in these shipping container companies 6 months at a time. It's providing those media services that they're always connected. So ultimately, we reduced operating expenses, improved efficiency, improved the crew morale and well-being, and keeping everyone stayed connected at sea. And I think I got within your 15 minutes. Any questions? Yes?
Is there any plans to upgrade that base station with Ericsson and Globecomm to LTE, get away from GSM?
Yes, that is actually something that Ericsson's trying to convince Maersk to do right now. They always want to sell their equipment, right? They always want to upgrade. The whole thing about LTE is more throughput, right? So with the current system, with the current configuration, they've got the throughput they require, but obviously it benefits us. More throughput is more bandwidth over satellite, so it'll increase our contract value as well.
Yeah, most carriers are trying to get rid of their 2G, so that's why I was asking.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, good question. Anybody else? Well, thank you. I hope you appreciate the story.